we discussed today become so successful and we pass our exams. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jennifer, for that strong prayer.
You're welcome.
So are we good to start?
Very.
Hello. Okay, please. You're welcome to Group 6. The members of Group 6 are and see for purpose and we were given a topic to discuss, that is conservation in forestry, and what it implies by those pictures. So please move to the next slide. So introduction, we started by trying to define the key terms regarding the topic, and the first of which is biodiversity or biological diversity. This actually refers to a variety of organisms existing on Earth, their interrelations, and their relationship with the environment. It includes a variety of plants, animals, and microorganisms. So that is what biodiversity entails. It describes whatever is living on the face of the earth. And biodiversity conservation here is a practice of maintaining and protecting and preserving the diversity of species, their habitats, and the way they relate among themselves, between organisms and the environment, and to keep the ecosystem healthy and functioning. Biodiversity conservation means entailing the preservation and protecting of these live organisms on Earth in the form of animals or plants, so that there is a coexistence among them in relation to the environment in which they live. That is what biodiversity conservation means. The main objectives of biodiversity conservation, we saw mainly three. One is to preserve the diversity of species, that is to maintain whatever is life, whatever is existing on Earth should be able to be given opportunity to continue surviving. Then sustain utilization of species and ecosystem. So these animals and plants existing on the face of the earth have their rights of being maintained and to be utilized in their various species, and also to coexist among each other within the face of the earth and essential process. So this is to ensure as they live, they should be able to live in harmony without one becoming a disadvantage to the other. So this is what the main objectives of biodiversity conservation entails. Next slide, please. Hello, next slide. Introduction. I'm going to finish this and then another colleague. We know Uganda is a very credible country which has got enormous array of animals and plant species. as quoted by the document of NEMA of 2009, we have about 18,786 species, making it one of the most biodiverse countries on the planet. So Uganda is rich, blessed with this, and we are proud to have so. Much of the country's economy, therefore, the form of agriculture, fishing, livestock industry, and tourism depend on it. We know this very well. By the crop production we produce and export and survive on, either on commercial or on sustainable agriculture reserves. This one attracts tourism and is able to give us foreign exchange. However, despite all this, we have a number of threats in the form of agricultural expansion. To expand agriculture. We have learned this from the previous topics that were presented. A lot of cutting of trees and so on in order to ensure we have adequate land or we have massive land for agriculture. Climate change, we also saw it yesterday. Biodiversity, we have wildfires. These fires can burn and destroy a lot of plantations and even the plants. So it is a threat to the biodiversity in the country. We have invasive and allied species. There are those species that grow and multiply so fast at the expense of others. So this one also poses a threat to the others, and they interfere with the existence of those ones which can be vulnerable. There is also poaching. People near parks poach these animals for survival and also for doing other businesses. Elephants can be killed for tusks. Some animals can be killed in order to get their skin and also food for mankind. Then there is also pollution, as we saw yesterday in the other presentations. A lot of production of these undesirable gases pollute the atmosphere, and this one threatens the biodiversity. Then open access to fishing. So there is a lot of open access to fishing, which entails fishing, removal of fish which are not even mature yet, to do a commercial activity on it. And this one is threatening the extinction of these fish before they mature. Then urbanization and industrialization. This one was well explained yesterday. A lot of disadvantages and advantages come up as a result of urbanization and industrialization. Pollution inclusive, a lot of accidents inclusive. Then over-exploitation of wetland resources. This one is also self-explanatory. The cost of trying to open more land for investment, for agriculture, for constructions, wetlands are encroached. Then replacement of local crops, variety with those ones which could be developed maybe through other mechanisms, is also a very big threat to this natural biodiversity, which is pose a threat to the extinction of others at the expense of the other. So I call upon the next colleague of the group to take over from there. Thank you very much for listening. Group members, and we move on. Hello, members. Can you join and we continue with the discussion?
Okay, good morning, class. I will take us through the next 3 slides. This is Kenneth Sime. We are looking at why should we conserve biodiversity as an important aspect? Someone should, I'm not seeing the slide. Okay, let me be using my
Is everyone not seeing the slides?
It is not sent to go ahead.
Sorry?
Okay, maybe
biological resources, ecosystem. So under the ban of yes, thank you, thank you, Derek. We are looking at the ecosystem services, decomposition of waste, pollination, water purification, flood control, increased soil fertility, and also under social spiritual benefits. We are looking at the culture and aesthetic value, recreation. Next slide. Derek. So the how do we conserve the
I can take over. I think his network is not right. So how in situ conservation on site, that is where you have them.
situ, which is the on-site.
Kenneth, your network is not okay. Take over.
Vicky?
Okay.
Oh, are you able to hear me?
No, let me take over here from here.
Okay.
Your network is not clear, yes. So we are seeing how we can conserve our environment or our biodiversity. So we have the two ways. One is in situ conservation. In situ conservation, that is on site. In their natural surroundings, you don't move them. You don't, like the national parks, you leave them where they are and you conserve them. So they are saying here it is the conservation and protection of species within their natural habitat and their natural ecosystem. Its biodiversity at all levels is maintained in order to protect the threatened species. This is through gazetting off. So here, as I told you, you don't move them, you leave all of them there, like you gazette them and protect them, like the WUA people. So how do we do it? We identify the hotspots. These are areas with high density of biodiversity, which are almost threatened, e.g., for example, these national parks, the Chivara National Parks for global regional endemic species, all of those ones like the Lake Victoria. So you make sure you protect them. They are not poached, they are not hunted, to keep them like the way they are, to maintain our biodiversity. That is in situ. Thank you. We can move another slide. So we are still in situ conservation. The protected areas are ecological areas where biological diversity along with natural and cultural resources are protected. Maintained, they are maintained, managed through legal or policy methods as a approach, no hunts in those national parks. So in Uganda, we have the national parks, national forests, reserves, sanctuaries. That's where lives. So what the importance of in situ conservation? Here, it is a cost-effective and efficient method of conserving the biodiversity, since we know it will not need even planting, you just leave the nature take its own course. So another one is a large number of living organisms can be conserved simultaneously. So since these organisms are in a natural ecosystem, they can evolve better and can easily adjust to different environmental conditions. Since they will not be tampered with and their natural habitat is also not disorganized, they will still multiply and enjoy its life and keep on. Thank you. Another slide. Another slide, please. So we are going to see another method of conserving our biodiversity. That is ex situ conservation, that is off-site. Here you remove them from the national park and put them another side. That is off-site. So they are saying it is a protection of threatened plant animals in a place outside their natural, where you remove them there. So it involves the breeding and maintenance of danger and put them in artificial ecosystem like zoos, nurseries. This is where the nurseries, that's where they keep the young animals, botanical gardens, gene banks. And when we want to see the importance, one is the animals are provided with a larger time, enough space. They are not disorganized by their other animals or other plants. So they are given enough larger time to breed and world. Here, captivity means like isolating something into a separate place. So after putting them in that separate place, after some time, you can still put them in the national parks or in other reserves. So we have here genetic techniques can be used for preservation of endangered species. Here you can use these modern techniques to use the genes to use the genes, make them multiply and preserve them, most especially those you think they're at the high risk of being destroyed or mismanaged. Thank you. I think another colleague can come in. Thank you so much.
Okay. Colleagues, let us join in and we complete so that we save time for other members.
Okay.
Vicky, are you with us?
Since they
Okay,
are not yet
Kamukama.
joining, let me take us through the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan 2.
We should mind the time.
There are two. There is the vision and the goal, and the vision is to maintain.
Make sure I use the minimum time as you can. Minimum minutes you can. Okay.
Okay, Derek. To maintain a rich biodiversity, benefiting the present and the future generation for socio-economic development, That's the bigger vision. And then the goal is to enhance the biodiversity conservation, management, and sustainable utilization and fair sharing of its benefits by 2025. So the objectives are, one is to restoration of degraded ecosystem. Having illegal wildlife trade, building capacity, also support research in strategic areas of biodiversity conservation and sustainable use. Derek, if you can push forward. Next. So the strategies, we are looking at integrating mainstream biodiversity issues in the National Development Plan, sector.
Clinical officer.
Are you guys in position to hear Kenneth?
Derek, this guy is not audible.
We are not hearing. Maybe
My network is not stable.
Take over from him again.
there's a problem. Okay, Derek, this
We have
share
already
the
used a
screen
lot
and we'll
of time.
continue.
This screen is already shared. You have already used a lot of. So I don't know. Mr. Anthony, should we stop from here? Another group goes on, or we leave them to finish?
The screen is not. Screen is,
Derek, your screen is
Let them
on.
finish. Let them
screen
finish.
is not is obstructed.
They should move to the last slide.
Is my screen visible? Because some people are saying my screen is not visible.
It's not.
Derek,
not
there is something wrong with your
is not
screen.
complete.
It's just network
You could-
issue.
You
There is
could
network.
share and share again.
That is displaying.
It's clear now, better. Yeah.
It's not fully visible.
It's not on now.
I think there's a challenge with the network also.
That is last slide.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is Mwabura Victoria. I hope that everyone is hearing me clearly. Derek, go to the previous slide, forest management.
Loud and clear.
Okay. As we all know, forests we were given to discuss about conservation of biodiversity and forest management. As we all know, a forest is an area of land dominated by trees. And in Uganda, we are having so very many forests, which serve a lot of importance. First of all, forests supply water. Derek, I'm not seeing your screen, but let me continue. Forests mitigate climate change.
Is everyone not seeing the screen?
That stuff has network issues.
The screen is showing different colors and covering the slide itself.
But I think in the interest of time, since we have already used a lot of time, let me just continue and the rest you can follow because you have already used a lot of time.
It's okay.
I was saying that I'm discussing forest management, and since I was issuing out some of the importances of forests, they mitigate climate change, they provide habitat for wildlife, for very many wild animals, very many species live in forests. Forests are also a source of food. They are also a source of medicine. Very many medicinal plants and are found in forests. Forests are a source of timber and fuel, I mean for charcoal. So regardless of that, forests are facing very many challenges, very many challenges. Forests are facing very many challenges, and as the years are going, they are continuously worsening. For example, we have encroachment. Forest land is being encroached. Some people are encroaching the forest land to plant their for food, for agricultural purposes, for urbanization. Secondly, forests are facing deforestation, large cutting down of trees for firewood, charcoal burning, and some are felling these trees to provide a large area for urbanization. And some of the trees are being cut to provide land for example, as you all know that Myra forest, most of Myra forest was cut down to go sugarcane. So all these problems call for forest management, since we all have seen that forests are really important and they need to be conserved. It calls for forest management. In brief, forest management is concerned with administrative, economic, social aspects, as well as scientific and technical aspects like protection, silviculture, and forest regulation. Some of the activities that of forest management, its goal is to protect the forest, to conserve the biodiversity in the forest. So some of the activities under forest management are, first of all, forest monitoring, monitoring these forests for wildfires, for encroachers, for those people who are trying to poach these animals. Second of all, making of forest laws, like, you know, there are some laws that are in place, like some laws against, for example, poaching. Some laws are there against encroachment on forest land. Then there is also deforestation and forest degradation. Initiatives are being put in place to overcome deforestation. For example, planting of trees, especially those trees, those species that are being threatened. There is planting of trees. Another forest management activity that is being carried on is environmental education, to try to educate the people living around those forest areas, to try to educate the whole country about the importance and the importance of the forest, the challenges of cutting down these trees. So education is being carried out about trying to instill awareness in people, especially those living around the forest, because usually it's those living around the forest that usually carry out the poaching, that usually carry out the charcoal burning. So those people living around the forest, the forests offer them economic activities. They usually carry out these activities, cutting down of trees, selling these trees, and among others. So this slide, there is the 250 vision, which is to live in harmony with the environment, with nature. So I submit. Thank you. Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
So we jumped to the last slides. I thought we were going to present all of them.
Yeah, we could jump to the last slide and conclude biodiversity and conservation of forests. We are running short of time.
They concluded.
I've only concluded. Someone should take, I think,
But I was seeing
Julius.
already the last slide being displayed. I thought maybe they finished that before.
Julius, are you on?
Yes, I'm now on.
You conclude about biodiversity.
Maybe just to mention, yeah, so maybe just to mention what we refer to as biodiversity is actually the entire flora and fauna that encompasses our ecosystems. So we do all this support coexistence, interrelationships. So if there is an interruption in one of them, there will be the interrelationships may be affected, and therefore the environment may be unhealthy. That is why we talk about environmental, biodiversity conservation, such that we do not actually affect these relationships that make these biodiverse or species that are currently present to affect their coexistence and thereby becoming unhealthy. So ideally, we should conserve this in order to make sure that there is no extinction of certain there is an extinction or there is the destruction of some of these species. There will be a disconnection in certain processes. For example, distillation. If you look at wetlands, if wetlands are completely degraded, there will be no proper water distillation. And that means water that gets into circulation will actually be of unhealthy consumption for the rest of the species that rely on the water. Secondly, if the wetlands are also destroyed, they also have no home and actually may end up being destroyed. So biodiversity conservation is the way to go to maintain our environments healthy. Thank you. I submit that's what I can sum up as the biodiversity conservation. Derek, I hope I've not been speaking to myself.
Julius, your network is breaking a lot. I don't know whether it is on my side or it is a general problem. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, you are clear. Julius was well in the beginning, but in the middle, the network went off.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Julius and your team members. This presentation is also good, and for purposes of this module, we are bringing in biodiversity and the conservation of forests as a key topic to discuss because the numerous fauna and flora contribute to well-being of man. They highlighted on the importances of forests, the importances of animals, etc. Those are well noted. So if there is no biodiversity conservation, we risk losing some of these organisms. Some we have already lost at the moment. For example, in Uganda, and these plants and animals were used either for tourism, medicine, economic gains to man, but since we have lost them, or they are at the verge of being lost and they are termed as endangered species, we ought to guard them jealously if we must have them, and conserve them for the next generations. Of course, there are challenges in diversity conservation, and the team managed to highlight some of these challenges. Some are man-made, whereas other challenges are natural. Between these organisms themselves, because in a natural habitat, organisms, both plants and animals, will regulate their populations. Meaning if the population of one exceeds the other, there is a likelihood that the prey-predator relationship won't be in balance. So we need to note all that and they see as public. Recently, during the pandemic, there was a near reserves with the primates could spread COVID-19 to the primates, since the genetic makeup of primates and humans is almost the same. Fortunately, we conducted a study in one of the reserves, and we didn't find any significant results on the prevalence of COVID-19 in the community. So we rendered that community non-harmful to the primates and many others. Because of man activity, many things are likely to happen, coming close and encroaching on the reserves, to mention but a few. So I think if a member has a question or a concern about this biodiversity and conservation of forests, for purposes of saving time, we could post it in the chat box, and either a member from group 6 will respond, or myself, I will respond. Then we can receive the next group. Derek, I think now your network has stabilized. You can take on and receive another group.
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Stewart.
You can hear me, eh? All right. This is Stewart for Group 7. Eh? As you can see, our topic was management of water resources in Uganda. So it's Stewart, Cautious, Roy, Gloria. Those will be your presenters for this work. Next slide, Gary. Cautious. Next slide.
So we're discussing management what's in Uganda. The thing is not moving. Cautious, kindly scroll. This slide is stuck, I think.
You can't see anything.
No, Stuart, the screen is on and she's moving.
The screen is on.
Stuart, it's your side.
It's your side, yeah.
My side. Let me try to read from mine. No, don't say like that now. Let me try to read from mine. So firstly, we had to define what water resource management is. This is the process of planning, developing, managing water resources. This in terms of both water quality and quantity. And since we're talking about water management, it includes the institutions, the different stakeholders involved in the water management. The institutions, the infrastructure, the incentives, the information, the support, everything that is all encompasses the management of water as a resource in Uganda. So we looked at, since we're discussing in Uganda, in its content water. One, Uganda is a landlocked country with approximately 24,000 kilometers squared of land, but open water and swamps is around 41,000 kilometers squared. Our main water source is rainfall. Of course, we have fresh water. Since we're a landlocked country, we don't have the salty water from the sea and the ocean. Since our usual main source is rainfall, our annual rainfall is between 500 to 2,800 millimeters. On average, that's around 1,100 millimeters. This is received in two main seasons. The spatial rainfall seasons, the spatial is like, they are spaced. Those two different seasons result in a network of great lakes and rivers that possess big potential for development. So our main source is the rainfall. They are spread to give us that fresh water source, the lakes and the rivers and all that. Our slides are less, so I think I'll stop here and then they're going to take on the next slides.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. I'm cautious.
Cautious, I think. Yes, cautious.
Yes, I am on, so I can take on from there. Good morning, class. We are discussing water resources. We talk about water availability and distribution. So we have two broad distributions. We have the natural lakes and lacustrine swamps found around the major lakes. And also we have the riverine and floodplain wetlands associated with major river systems in Uganda. For example, if you go out there and you look around, you realize that where there is a lake, there is a swamp around it, and that swamp continues and connects. And so they usually end up into the riverine and also the wetlands. So we have two organizations that are responsible for water in Uganda. We have the Directorate of Water and Development, and also have the National Water and Sewerage Corporation. And these are tasked to ensure that water is available to Uganda, and comparing water requirements with available renewable fresh water, the capacity to utilize only 1% of the current renewable fresh water for consumption purposes. So this is what was found out. So right. So the water occurrence, we say the main source of our water is rainwater. So we have, it's categorized into surface water and groundwater. So under surface water, the Department of Water Resources Management of Uganda categorizes surface water into 8 main sub-basins. And the surface water, these are basically like the lakes we have. And then also we have the groundwater, where you've had people dig and pump water up. So some of them use it for drinking, irrigation, for supplying other things. And also we realize that also 60% of our country's water from groundwater comes or occurs as boreholes and springs. So realize, like, when you go in areas where there is no much surface water, most people have boreholes, they have springs, but also some people do dig what we call the shallow wells. So that is also considered as groundwater. And then surface water, you realize that because I've said our source of water is rainfall, so surface water is like this runaway water, and all the water that falls on the surface is drained by the White Nile with 8 sub-basins and smaller portions, and it ends into Lake Turkana. And if you've been following some news, you've had those conversations between Uganda and Egypt and whatever is happening. And also, we also have surface water that runs from the snow and glaciers, mostly in Rainfall Mountains, because of its altitude being like so high. And this water is the one that fills Lake Edward and Lake George. And the main causes of surface water, one, you realize that we have poor agriculture practices, and they end up increasing the sedimentation and then loading the rivers. And then we have poor sanitation, and also industrial waste discharge and mining activities. So all these activities, they end up polluting our surface water and affecting it. So as we continue, we realize that we also have other major challenges that we are going to be discussing in the next slides. So let me call someone else to take us through that for us to save some time. Thank you.
Thank you, coaches. This is Roy. I'll be taking you guys through next slides. So we look at rainfall in Uganda. We say that rainfall is the most important source of water for us. When you look at the patterns and all where we got our water from, mostly it comes from rainfall, which accounts for the largest percentage of how we get our water. So the pattern greatly influences social, influences local land use, potential, and population distribution. You realize that in areas that have better rainfall, there's more rainfall. You find more people are settled there because you're going to do your agriculture and other activities. So people tend to settle more in areas with more rainfall, with better rainfall distribution. So pattern in Uganda has 2 peaks. We have a link to the double passage of the intertropical convergence zone, with the peak actually being from March to May. But if you realize, I think with the climate change around now, you realize that this pattern is actually not the way it used to be. Right now, there's actually more rain. Around that period, March to May, we should have had actually more rain. Rain was actually less. But this time, when you look, you see we're having more rain instead. So I think these are some of the changes that are coming. Then we have the October to December pattern as well. We expect still more rain, but sometimes you realize that along that time, we don't have enough rain. So these are some of the water sources we have in Uganda. We have the lakes, Lake Victoria, Lake Albert, Kyoga. Of course, the rivers, we have Nile, Katonga. These are things that we already know from our geography in O-level and A-level and stuff. So rainfall, surf water runoff, then we have the groundwater that how Coach has already explained to us. Do I still need to continue? Someone is taking from here?
Yes,
Okay,
Roy,
thank you, Roy. Thank
Pio.
you, Roy, for the submission and the team. I'll take up from here and would like to know some of the uses of water. And water is mainly used for sustaining all forms of life, human life, eco-life, wildlife, just like that. And then we also use this water in food production. We've seen it being used majorly in the industries, even at home. Then promoting economical development. Well, the best example, the easiest example I can give is whereby people use this water to gain income, like we've already seen in villages or in areas where there is scarcity of water, people selling water and at the end of the day generate income from it. But it is also used for other more, let me say, complex usage in industries, and then also trade, and maybe like the water companies that are producing bottled water. And then for the general well-being of human life, we know that water is life and it's also a necessity for life to continue. and went on to say that there are basically two distinct water resource categories: the surface water, as earlier explained by Cautious, and then the groundwater as well. I'll not repeat that because it was already explained. Cautious, the next slide. Yes, then as we strive to have a balance or management of water resources in Uganda, there is what we call the integrated water resource management. And I would want to first define this by saying that it is a process which promotes the coordinated development and management of water, land, and related resources in order to maximize we don't have water resource management, like what exactly it entails. But under the water resource management, we look at the qualitative and the quantitative exploration of water resources, water needs and inventory records, measurements and matching of water needs and resources in spatial systems, and then decision support depending on the results. Whereas the integrated water resource management looks at maybe just to add to this, I would say that this integrated water resource management also tries to implement its activities by establishing majorly three main pillars, that is management instruments, enabling environment, and then institutional frameworks. And it is under the institutional frameworks where we see river basin planning, controlling reservoir releases, regulating floodplains, developing new laws and regulations, organizing of task forces, planning new capital facilities, and in enabling environment, we look at things like policies, legislations, and all these strive to have a balance whereby water, having a balance whereby water is either for livelihood or water is used as a resource. So thank you. Over to the next presenter.
Thank you, Emma, and the guys. Okay, so we are going to look at this is Gloria up here. We are going to look at the decision flow diagram of water resource management. But we're going to first define the national central control. This handles national and macro-regional water resource management, feature plans and implementation, building and maintaining international relationships. And then we're also going to look at the regional, that's to say operational management. This is the one that harmonizes and controls the locally occurring water demands and uses, water sources and qualitative, quantitative water resource protection. So when you look at this yellow diagram, it's about just following the arrows. For example, in a situation where there is no equilibrium in the hydrological and ecological system, we are going to realize an ecological and economical water demand, like water needs. So this will lead to water demands submission. So when there is water demand submission, we are going to realize that there must be water management planning, which leads to water management interventions. And these interventions will lead to serving water demands, which demands were created before. And then in a situation where we see that there is an equilibrium, we're going to have water management control, which is going to lead to water management interventions. And at the same time, we are going to get demands of water being served. So it's just about following the arrows and you'll get the whole thing. Next slide. Hello.
Yes, continue.
Next slide. Next slide, please.
Gloria, we're in the next slide.
Gloria, continue.
Okay, so we are going to look management. Thank you so much. So challenges and the recommendations when we have poor performance of data networks. And what is the recommendation here? More capacity and skills development. Another challenge, of course, water supply and recommended water management. Our next one is and old pipe works. I know where we legally, and sometimes they do these moves and arrest those people, so they have to pay for this. So the recommendation here is policies and guidelines that are going to help curb such bad behavior. Another challenge is poor interagency coordination and information sharing. Here we can increase focus on water production, water for irrigation, livestock through automated systems. Inadequate, poor system support from vendors. Most equipment and applications are important with limited local maintenance operators. So, and then another challenge is limited skills and competences. So what can be done in such situations is enhance regional and international collaborations towards smart water management. Thank you. Adjawo, you can come in.
Yes. Thank you, team. Good afternoon. I'm Flavia Lily Adiao. I'll be just fine.
Your time is, you're in Europe.
Diaspora. We are on emerging issues and threats on water source. Actually, this is our final slide. And actually the points are straightforward. Cage fish farming and drainage of wetlands. Then there is water within the Nile River system. We can all see that even when we pass via Ginger, those that take that route. Then there is increasing population growth and urbanization. To that urbanization, the wetlands. Then there is impacts of oil and gas. Those are the heavy metals in groundwater. Then we also have lack of a clear framework for ownership, construction. You find people are just constructing anywhere you feel like, as long as you have money. Then there is uneven spatial and temporal distribution. Then we have the influx of refugees. That one is so putting a stress on the water, a hub for not here. What about here?
That's fair.
That is fair.
Yes.
Then I was talking about increased and high costs for data transmission recommendations. Then another point was upscaling implementation and catchment planning and water source protection guidelines. I think now here we are looking at the way forward, what we shall do. Then there is operationalization of the 3% contribution for water source protection. That is another way forward. Then we have the satellite transmission as cheaper alternative be adapted for future stations. Then we have strengthening enforcement of compliance to the laws and regulations. You know, we have all the laws and regulations for the protection of these water resources, but there is little being done. People are violating them every other day. Then we need to carry out comprehensive assessment of water resources in the oil and gas region. I've been seeing many people going that side that doing assessment, especially the west, the Albertine region. Then we need to carry out I talked about that. Then the other emerging issue is climate change. Paula said some people above the law, that's the gospel truth. So I think the major threat we have right now is climate change. When it's raining, it's over flooding. When it is dry, it is extremely dry. You can't even walk under the sun. So there is really rapid climate change. Actually, now I can't. I'm not hearing. Someone was trying to speak. Next slide, Roy.
I thought that is the last slide.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was group 7. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Flavia, and your team for